This 15 by 15 foot square fenced in area here is my main crop garden number 4, and I've recently harvested some potato onions out of these 2 short rows and some French shallot out of the longer row behind, and I transplanted and reseeded some of these rows. On the left side I reseeded with soybeans, and there are also beets growing in amongst the potato onions before I pulled them, and then I transplanted some leeks. On the other side I put some mammoth radishes. I want to get this documented. These are barley seeds, and they're very large seeds. So another permaculturalist gave this to me last winter and I forgot about them. And when I finally found them I thought, well, I have no place left yet to plant them, but I had these little depressions here, which this is where I hopped over from one row to another, so I planted them in that access area. And then in this back part we have parsnips now growing and leeks that I transplanted in here. This was a bed of shallots, and I put the parsnip seeds in the bed a good month and a half ago along with the onions. On this side is a companion planting of Cossack kohlrabi and yellow beans, and on the other side it's soft-neck garlic. And there's some other interesting features here that we're going to get more in depth with. I'm going to bring the camera in and get you some close-ups. So right now the camera is looking into the morning sun, and this gooseberry plant is on the southeast corner. And along the row, or along the fence line, you look close, there are yellow raspberry plants coming up along the corner. Actually along the whole fence line, both south and east. Then I have some climbing peas that are coming up, and they're kind of bending out over into this kohlrabi, but that's okay. And then here's the kohlrabi. And this is interesting that I planted yellow beans here along with the kohlrabi. Oh, look at that. Got more yellow beans. I got the yellow beans down here. I just looked a couple days ago. There were just a couple flowers. And you see we got a handful of yellow beans already. So the idea was the beans, we're going to have to negotiate under and around these Cossack leaves. These are pretty large leaves. Some of the leaves get to be just monsters, and there actually isn't any really huge ones in this batch. But we're going to be getting a crop of beans while we're waiting for the Cossack kohlrabi to mature. And you can see this thing is just monster already. We're already approaching 10 pounds at this one. They can get up to 20, and the biggest I've grown them was over 12. I did it 2 years in a row. So this year might be the year. So right now we have 1 kohlrabi, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5. 5 kohlrabi, and I planted them all in a staggered pattern. And then in between these kohlrabis, of course we have these peas which are supposed to stay at the fence line. They're coming on over the top, which isn't that big a deal. And in between them there are quite a few yellow bean plants coming up. But they're kind of small, you know, they're being suppressed by the leaves of the kohlrabi. Here's another bean. I don't know. But the positive part of this is we're getting a bean crop while we're waiting for these Cossack kohlrabis to grow. And when the beans are finished, it'll fix nitrogen in the soil for next year's crop. So let's come over here. I also had the kohlrabi planted in a staggered planting here. I actually had 11 in the whole bed. There's 5 over there. Now there's only 2 over here because it was such a wet May that these kohlrabi split. And instead of allowing them to heal up by themselves, you know, you'd lose something in that. I went ahead and harvested them and ate them. And these beans that I had planted underneath the plants just exploded. And we've been getting handfuls and handfuls of yellow beans out of it already. These are way ahead of the ones that are still on the kohlrabi patch over there. So the lesson here is, if something fails, because there's a companion planting, the other is going to succeed.
in its stead. Or you're hoping that. Nice.
Nice, nice.
So here's the northeast wall. This is a little microclimate here because I have a wooden fence here on the north side. And I have pot potatoes growing. There's actually black tree pots that I put them in. And in the beginning, these pots really heated up in the sun, but now they're shaded over. And in front of this, I have a sweet potato growing. So we'll see how that works out. In the corner, northeast corner, I have a My Idaho apricot tree. There's an aronia bush right here. This is a service berry down below. And then on the end, I have blueberries growing. This is a blueberry right here. This is a weed tree here. So there's a lot of stuff growing just in this little corner here. Okay, so the kohlrabi and the beans, that row is the eastern row. Now we're going to take the next one. We're looking at 4 rows here. So we'll start right here. So I just harvested potato onions out of here, and I had seeded it heavily with parsnips, but for some reason the seeds didn't take, and I only have 4 parsnips growing in here. So after harvest yesterday, I actually planted this with a mammoth radish, and it's a radish that can grow 90 days. So we're looking at the middle of July, and we're looking at the middle of October before it's finished, and I've let them grow all the way through into December already, and they just keep getting bigger. The biggest one of those has been 3.5 pounds. So in the middle of the row is barley. I actually got this barley from a permaculture fella I know. I met him in Green Bay, and he gave me some seed. He said it was special seed, and the seeds are just huge. And I forgot about them, forgot about the seed that is, until all my gardens were planted, and then I found them and I remembered, and I went ahead and planted in this access path here. So this is normally the path that I use to go from one bed to another. So now I got to jump over. So this bed is a little bit longer. It was already harvested. I planted French shallots in here, and I actually planted them last October. And as they were coming up in the spring, I planted parsnip seeds, and they just wouldn't come up. 1 would come up, 3 would come up, and I planted parsnip seeds 3 times. And finally I got enough to cover this bed. So now that I pulled the shallots out of here, which I just did it this last week, now these parsnips are going to be taking over. And along with the parsnips, I've got leeks planted, and I transplanted those in there. I did that yesterday. Here's a volunteer honey locust plant. We're going to transplant that out of here in October. And we have a kohlrabi that I just stuck on the corner here of the bed. And then back the fence line, we're looking at more peas. Oh, there's some peas that are done here. I missed these. And a weed. And these are raspberries. And espaliard is this, I forget what it's called, pristine. Some type of a pristine apple. Pristine apple. Just says Malus pumila. And these are early apples, so another couple weeks we'll be eating those. Here's another night. Ooh, there's a dandy pea there. And more here. Oh, I got lots of peas here. I never looked at this fence line. There's more over here too. I'm going to have to come back at this. Okay, and the reason for the espalier is we don't want the tree to grow tall and shade the garden. So I've got it tied off, and then this one here, sooner or later I'll tie that off. There's another one growing. We're just going to keep it simple. And if we get 20, 25 apples on a tree, that's plenty. I've got a lot of trees. Okay, this will be the 3rd bed from the east. So you can get an idea what things look like here. before I harvest the onions, this is a weed here, but this is a bed of shallots, French shallots, and I'll harvest one here for you so you can see what I got going on here. This one only had 3. These are French shallots. There's a couple more shallots here, so get these all together. These are French shallots. I actually received these French shallots 4 years ago. This is their fifth summer here. And I've been planting them every winter, so they made it through those 2 really hard winters. I planted them in October or November, depending on how warm it was. And all I wanted them to do is establish their root system and then come up right away in the spring. And it's been successful. Now I'm going to harvest these very soon. Maybe I'll harvest them today so you can see, I can put it on a video, you can see how much I get. And then there's also kohlrabies in here. And these are pretty nice sized kohlrabies here. Look at that. These are probably 3, 4, maybe close to 5 pounders. But I'm going to harvest these kohlrabies now in the next couple weeks and eat them. And after I get these shallots out of here, I'm going to take all these clovers and everything and cut them down so that the nitrogen stays in the ground, and compost the leaves. And then I'll seed this with a mixture of buckwheat and mustard. And in the middle of August, which is a month from now, I'll cut that, and then I'll seed it with some type of a large fall radish. Okay. Look at that, I've really been missing the peas over here on this back side. Look at them all over here. They're full. I'm gonna have a bowl full of peas for lunch today. And then we got the barley again in our little access path. So when I saw the seeds, I thought, boy, I gotta plant that somewhere. And I'm glad I did. This is really nice stuff. And this is a row that I've been talking about on Facebook. This was a major planting of potato onions. And I harvested the onions the last couple days. And I got 150 onions out of here. And I didn't plant that many. They divide, and probably the smallest one was 5 and had some that were 10 onions. And I've already taken, before this, I've already taken a harvest of radishes. And I also planted some beet seeds in with the radishes, and you can see the beets are growing pretty good here. And now I've transplanted some leeks in here. So I had an excess of leeks from the bed that I had intended to plant them, and all the excess I kind of balled up into one little planting. And I pulled it out of there and transplanted them in here. And then along with that, I planted some soybeans seeds. So I planted the soybean seeds yesterday. You can see I leave these little indentations in the bed. There's all these little pockets. That way when I water it, the water just doesn't run off the bed. It kind of loads up in that pocket and then soaks in. So there's a pot of potatoes that I'm going to harvest here. Maybe I'll do that today too. That was an early one I started. And then I have a pot of sweet potatoes, and then I have a bed of sweet potatoes next door to one another. We want to see which one does the best. That one was only 1 potato, and then this bed here has 2 in it. In the corner is a chira and stinging nettle. There are climbing peas along the middle fence. Let's put this down and we'll talk about this bed here, the last one. This is the 4th bed. This would be on the west side of the garden. These beds are all running north to south. So these are soft-neck garlic, and they're getting really close to being harvested. This is what I do. I mean, people do all different things, right? But I let them dry out in the ground. So when these stalks are all pretty much brown, which they'll probably be pretty much brown at least in the next 2 weeks, then I'll harvest them. And in the meantime, a couple days ago, or maybe even a week ago already, I seeded this bed with mustard and buckwheat, because I'm going to end up planting this with fall radishes here, and I want the mustard to get in here and take care of the nematodes. And plus, I'm just going to cut it. I won't pull it out of the ground, and the roots will compost in the soil, and that'll be food for the radishes. And the green material I'll work into the ground as well. I'll give you a close-up of this mustard here. Yeah, look at this. Yeah, you can see the mustard and the buckwheat in there. And in the corner, of course, we have more climbing peas all the way along here. And in the corner, you can't see it, but hidden in there is a red beauty kiwi. I'm going to let that grow up and grow into that cherry tree. Okay, so this is main crop garden number 4. Area 15 feet by 15 feet. With a wooden fence on the north side serving as a microclimate. And there's fencing all the way around. Below, at least, and even buried in the ground 6 inches, is hardware cloth. And then it meets up with this 2 by 3 inch welded wire fence. And it goes up 5 feet. Oh, and one other thing. On this side I have a grapevine and a plum tree, then a espaliering. And I also have grapevines on this side. Actually, I have 2 of them. There's one right there. There's one over there. On the other side I have black raspberries growing. You can see it coming through the fence right here. Okay, I think I'm going to harvest these French shallots right now.